Chapter 5. Tuesday morning, Aisha and I are back at Flushing High, as if nothing happened. We're not the only illegals at our school. We're everywhere. You just have to look. A lot of the kids here were born elsewhere. Korea, China, India, the Dominican Republic. You can't tell which ones aren't legal. We try to get lost in the landscape of backpacks and book reports. To find us, you have to pick up the signals. It might be in class when a teacher asks a personal question and a kid gets this funny, pinched look in his eyes. Or some girl doesn't want to give her address to the counselor. We all agree not to notice. I remember when I was little, crouching in a corner of the playground and hearing a group of girls chant, "Ask me no questions, tell me no lies." That's the policy at school. Ask me no questions, we say silently, and the teachers don't. We're not the INS, I once heard one of them say. We're here to teach. But sometimes I feel like shaking their sleeves and blurting out, "Ask me, please." This morning, Aisha and I are standing by the lockers on the first floor when Mr. Friedlander, the college counselor, comes hurrying up to us. He looks happy, really happy. "Aisha," he calls, "I was looking for you yesterday." His brow wrinkles a little. "Were you sick?" Aisha tosses her hair back from her shoulders and gives him a sweet smile. "Nothing big, just a little stomach flu." A flicker of tension twitches between us. 5 times on the way to school, Aisha told me not to say anything about our trip to the border, not even to Lily Yee, my best friend at school. "I've been on the phone with Mrs. Jones at the Barnard admissions office." Aisha stiffens a little, her elbows drawn back at her sides. "That's great. They're very interested in your application, so I've scheduled an interview." Wow! The two of us stare for a few seconds at Mr. Friedlander. He dresses a little funny, in sky blue shirts with bow ties and tweed jackets, and he's always rattling off facts that have nothing to do with math, the subject he teaches. He once lectured Aisha and me about the ancient city of Harappa. All the kids say he's one of the coolest teachers in school, since he gets to know everyone really well. Poor Mr. Friedlander doesn't have a family. So sad, Abba says. But he doesn't seem sad to me. Mr. Friedlander is the coach for the math team, and Aisha's one of the stars. She can do sums and equations so quick, people think she cheats with a calculator. Ever since he had Aisha in geometry and heard that she wanted to go to Harvard and be a doctor, Mr. Friedlander has made Aisha his little project, recommending her to Mr. Rosen for the debate team, too. Because Aisha's such a good mimic, she's a great debater. She can actually imagine what other people are thinking, say it better than they do, and then turn the argument her way. "You will be a lawyer one day, not a doctor," Abba likes to joke. Mr. Friedlander, Mrs. Rosen, none of them know that we're illegal. After Aisha filled out the college applications, we kept hoping our immigration papers would go through, so everything would be above board. She wrote in the space for immigration status, "Visa pending." When Mr. Friedlander pressed Aisha about finishing the financial aid forms, Aisha lied. She said that the family had saved up a lot of money, and that all the relatives were planning on chipping in and helping to pay for her education. Now Mr. Friedlander puts his hands on his hips and smiles. "So, we're set then?" Aisha nods. "Great. I'll call you tonight when I know what day and time." Aisha freezes, her hand on the locker door. Of course he can't call. We don't live at home anymore. The only thing left is a wilted chili plant on the kitchen windowsill and a for rent card stuck in the front window. "Do you think you could just send a note to me later?" she asks. "Our phone, it's broken, and the phone company isn't sure when they'll fix it." "Sure, I'll do that." He does an odd squint, and then he looks at me, grinning. "So, Nadira, not bad for your big sister, eh?" "It's great," I reply. In a couple of years, he says, wagging his finger, we're going to start on you. After school, I go to visit my Ali uncle at the magazine shop. Ali uncle is not my real uncle. We just call him that, like we do for all my parents' male friends. He's not as old either as all the other uncles, but he likes to wear a long kurta, and he has a beard, and he prays 5 times a day. Abba and Ma, they do some of the holidays, like they fast for Ramadan, but it's been a long time since I've seen Abba pull out the prayer rug from the closet. Ali lives by himself, in a room over a dry cleaner's. In the mornings, he works at a discount electronics store, moving boxes in the stockroom. Afternoons, he comes here to watch the register, and then stack the newspapers and shut down the place. When it's time for him to roll out his little rug in the back alley and do his evening prayers, I stand at the cash register and help gather the last papers. The rest of the time, he's always at the mosque a few blocks away, where he sits cross-legged on the small carpets and explains the Quran to the little boys gathered around him. Or he recites poems by Tagore or Nazrul, the most famous Bengali poets. Ma says Ali uncle is like a guardian spirit. He watches over others and makes sure we are safe from harm. I'm turning the corner when behind me I hear the thump, thump rumble of a car stereo, and Tareq comes squealing to the curb. Tareq drives a souped-up car with tinted windows and a major sound system. Low life, Aisha calls him. That's because he dropped out of school. He's always got an angle. He worked on construction crews for a while, drove for a car service, and then got into some deal at a gas station where he pretended to man the pumps, but in the back unloaded crates of radios and CD players. Ma calls him Baga, which means tiger in Bangla, because he's got this wide face with narrow eyes and a fearsome temper. Tareq wears his baggy jeans just so, flopped over his tan Timberland work boots. And what kind of work is that boy doing so he wears expensive boots like that? My mother always scolds. A black comb hiking out of the back pocket. For a while there were rumors that he was in a gang that was always busting up parties at the Bhangra music clubs. Nadira, he shouts to me now. He's sitting in the driver's seat, one hand loose on the wheel. Hear your dad's in some trouble. No trouble, I reply. Not what I was told. Half the time, I don't know what to make of Tareq. He makes me mad and anxious, but he's also so strong and sure of himself. The lock pops up, and Tareq waves me into the car. I climb into the passenger seat, my nylon backpack squashed down by my feet. Your dad wants, I can take care of it. What do you mean? There's places you can buy what you need. He taps his steering wheel. You think everyone gets a green card playing by the rules? He presses the button on the glove compartment, extracts a pen and a scrap of paper, scribbling some numbers down. That's my cell, he goes on. Call me any time. I stuff the paper into my pocket. Nadira! Ali uncle is standing outside the magazine shop, hands on his hips. I give Tareq a sheepish look and climb out. I brace myself for a lecture from Ali uncle about Tareq, but it doesn't come. Instead, he says with a smile, You came back safe. Behind me I hear the squeal of tires, and Tareq's car is gone, throbbing in the distance. Can I have a Coke? I ask. He smiles and scribbles an imaginary pad with his finger. I'm keeping a book for how many you've drunk, Nadira. The shop is like a long closet, and the two of us can barely stand next to each other without one of us bumping into the magazine stand or the cash register. Now I wish it were bigger, because Ali uncle keeps looking at me with his soft, worried eyes. The first night after we returned, Auntie had called our friends, cupping her palm over the receiver and telling everyone what had happened to us when we tried to go to Canada. You mustn't fret about your father. He'll be all right. He's such a strong man. And your mother? She'll make sure he gets his papers right. We work silently together, cutting off the top of the first page of the newspapers and putting them in stacks, though the whole time I can feel Ali Uncle's eyes on me. Not to worry, he mutters several times under his breath. By the time we're done, I'm so jumpy and tired, I don't even want the bag of sugar babies he tosses in my direction. Nadira, we're standing outside the store, the grate pulled down and the lock attached. Dirty slush gurgles into the street drain, and a damp, chilly wind seeps down my collar. I look up at the black sky, and I wonder if it's dark in Vermont, too. How does Ma make her way back to the shelter when it's time to go to sleep? Ali Uncle is speaking, so I pull my thoughts from Ma and try to pay attention. In this country, we are still only visitors. We must be very careful. If we offend or break the law, we may bring the wrath from our hosts, he sighs. Boys like Tareq, they don't think. They just do. They're not good for our community. They're vultures feeding off of our fears. I squirm away, not wanting to hear his lecture. There's something else, he continues. If by chance one day I too have to go away, he gestures toward the street where white points of headlights stab past. You must say nothing, not to your parents, not to anyone. I must look alarmed because he adds quickly, there's nothing wrong. It's just, there may come a time when I have no place to stay. You understand? I do. I hear these stories all the time, especially these days. Friends of my parents who decide to move to a different apartment, another state, hoping the authorities won't track them down. But I don't like the way Ali Uncle is looking at me. His bristly eyebrows bunched together. I don't like the way the adults have been talking to me since this all began. Either they speak like I'm a little baby who can't understand the stupidest thing, or they gaze at me with the weight and sadness of the world behind their eyes, making me feel so confused I wish they'd just shut up. Now I feel even worse, because it's happened to Ali Uncle, who was always so calm and reassuring. He's already turned away and started walking down the block. He holds his collar tight against his throat. The bottom of his kurta blows against his knees like two flimsy pieces of wash, and the words inside me are stones in my mouth.